Welcome to Crafting a Career in the Arts, The Inspirations. Have you ever wondered what inspired some of Edmonton's biggest art events and celebrations? In this series, we delve into the minds of the people behind some of Edmonton's largest and most iconic festivals and spaces for the arts to find out what inspired not only the event, but those who run them. Join us as we look into the history of the art scene and speak with those who help make the arts possible in Edmonton about who they hope to inspire. Music festivals in the city of Edmonton go all the way back to 1908 with the founding of the Alberta Music Festival, which is believed to be Canada's and possibly North America's oldest competition festival. Edmonton's passion for live music continued throughout the years, and in 1980, the Edmonton Folk Music Festival was created. Please join us for our 2-episode exploration of the Edmonton folk music scene and where musicians can find inspiration in our city. In this episode, we meet with the producer and artistic director of the Edmonton Folk Music Festival, who discusses what inspired this iconic festival, what inspires him, and how he hopes to inspire new musicians through the festival's School of Song stage. In the next episode, we will meet Ria March, who founded the School of Song stage. Ria discusses all the opportunities this stage and many others she is involved with provide for aspiring musicians of any level here in Edmonton.
My name is Terry Wickham. I work for the Edmonton Folk Music Festival, and my title is producer, which means I'm the artistic director and general manager. And we have 2,700 volunteers, so that's our main workforce, and we have a staff. The Edmonton Folk Music Festival is a 4-day outdoor event held on Gallagher Park. So if you want to situate it within Edmonton, it's right beside the Mutard Conservatory. We have one main stage, and we have 6 side stages. Arts and crafts, and beer and food and concessions, all of that. Children are free. We sell 14,000 tickets a day, and we let about 11,000 people in for free every day. So we're a not-for-profit society. And Don Whalen was the person that founded the festival. So he started the festival in 1980. The folk festival here really was inspired by the Winnipeg Folk Festival, so it kind of copied that. On a practical level, the government put some money forward for the 75th anniversary, and that's when the Jazz Festival started in Edmonton, and the Folk Festival started in Calgary, and Folk Festival started in Edmonton, and quite a few things that started and kind of, they took root. So there are differences in how they're done, but the model is the same. It's multi-stages, it's folk music in different cultures and collaborations, and children getting in for free, and it's a community event. They're all not-for-profits. So all the major Canadian folk festivals are all not-for-profits. Well, the folk festival certainly has evolved since 1980. Every festival has to reflect the kind of community that they are. If you're in Grand Prairie or New York, you might be programming a little bit differently than you would be in Edmonton. So we try and reflect the community and what the people want to see. And I went to some, elders in the Indigenous community and said, tell me about thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. Everything, like folk music is passed down, from generation to generation. And essentially people believe that the River Valley in Edmonton has been a gathering place for thousands of years for big celebrations. So we're following in that tradition, first of all. And then secondly, that inspired me to bring in more what I think is the traditional music of Canada, which is the music of Indigenous people. I remember one of the guys in the Chieftain saying, how come folk festivals don't bring in, like traditional Canadian folk music? And I said, well, we do. We have East Coast fiddlers, we have songwriters, we have all these. Well, no, but the Indigenous people. So we have started a program that's been going a few years now called Nickamone. A person comes in and programs artists, and it's knowledge-based. It's not just music. some music, but it's crafts, it's different things, it's history, it's storytelling, it's elders. People can go in there and kids can immerse themselves in that. So our audience, when it gets dark, we go around, we sell candles for, I don't know, $1 each or something like that. And they all light candles. So someone like Van Morrison, the last half an hour, all these candles are out. And if he started at 8, he would have finished at 9:30 just as it's getting dark. But he started at 8:30, so he finished at 10. So he had a half an hour of dark. So everybody had the candles out, and he did Gloria. And then people were going back and forward, GLOR, GLORIA, Gloria, and, it's made a special moment, but I had to stick to 8:30 to make that moment happen. It's a community that gets together. It's just like a family. It's like Christmas. People get together and they see all their friends, and no one has to cook, and there's beer and there's music, and usually good weather and great music. So it's a pretty hard combination to beat. My mantra is that we get better every year, and sometimes that's a big jump. Like in 1993, we opened up the whole west side of the festival and added stages 3, 4, 5, and 6 because there was so much sound bleed. So we kind of doubled the footprint of the festival.
Next, Terry talks about how the festival has evolved from folk and country music to a diverse range of genres, including Indigenous, world, blues, and more. Throughout the year, Terry also works with large local venues to present folk concerts in between festivals.
Edmonton has become one of the premier folk festivals in the world. People like Brandy Carlisle have said to me it's her favorite festival. John Prine said the same thing. And I've had, traditional Irish musicians and gospel singers from the States say the same thing. And I think what's special is the way people are treated here. So I think what Edmonton brings, it adds to the international reputation. We had the mayor of Nashville here one time and put him on main stage, and that's Music City. And I'd say he went back with a good impression of Edmonton because of that. I think we've inspired a lot of local musicians because if you're a kid and you're seeing some of the best guitarists in the world, for me, that's intimidating. I just put on a CD because I can, I don't have to go through the process of learning all that. But for someone else, they're looking and seeing, what is he doing? What's this guy doing here? So I think there's quite a few musicians that have been inspired by it. I think the people are inspired by it. I think a lot of people find it's, their favorite 4 days of the year. I mean, everybody knows that Lyle Lovett's really good, or Bonnie Raitt's a really good guitarist, but it's trying to find the gems on the way up. And we look for great. We don't look for good. We don't look for very good. We look for great. So I think there's lots of ways that, people can find their inspiration, certainly at the festival. We try and build a utopia. I know that's a big word. I know it's very hard to hit perfection. I want people to realize that they can do really, really good work here. We're in our own small milieu, for want of a better word, we're kind of well known. Newport, Edmonton, maybe a couple of other festivals. If you're looking at the best folk festivals in that Western model, you're going to look at Edmonton. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I want young musicians to be inspired by it and say, oh, people make a living doing this. I'd like to do this. And maybe organizers that come along, or people who want to organize, look at this and go, we're a pretty well-oiled machine now after 44 years. We know what we're doing. There's not, things do go wrong sometimes, but not many things go wrong. So we strive for perfection. We're human, so it's not really attainable over 4 days. But some years and sometimes and some moments, it gets close. And it is like a utopia, where everybody's treated well, where kids are running around having joy, where there's no injuries or fights, or, we've never had any fights at the festival. Yeah, I'm trying to make a living at it, because it's very rewarding to work, with creative people and talented people. So just, make sure you're in love with your craft, because it's difficult, it's competitive. The standard of musicianship now is pretty staggering to get there, and, all of those things. So make sure it's a life you want. I have seen some people make it. Lorena McKenna came in when she was kind of a street busker And now she comes and she can sell out the Jubilee and make lots of money, and she runs her own business, and she's, she runs a tight, good business and keeps a lot of people employed and brings a lot to her community. For instance, that's just one that I saw coming up, but I've seen plenty of others. And if you end up just being a really good player, well, that's a really good outlet that I personally don't have. So when you go to whatever job you have, if you don't make a living as an artist, you've got that in the back to keep you happy, to entertain your friends at gatherings or out in the country when you're sitting around a fireplace. So it doesn't always have to be about money. The idea of traveling troubadours is reasonably recent in human history, that people went around making music and making money at it. People used to just do that for pleasure. And I think pleasure has to stay at the center of it. And if you happen to get really good and the financial rewards come your way, well, then that's great. And the financial rewards are great for people who really make it. They get to set their own timetable, they get to work when they want. It can be grueling, it can be hard. I do a concert and then I go, oh, and then I'm tired the next day, but the bands go off and here they are doing a show in another city. I would just say, learn your craft. Learn, whether you're a writer or poet, just learn your craft and be as good as you can at it and see where that falls, and try and learn from other people. They've made their way up, and see what mistakes they made, see if they can shortcut it. I always say it's better to learn from other people's mistakes than to learn from your own. So if I see someone make a mistake at a festival, I take note and go, oh, I'm not going to do that, and try and get a leg up. I found it hard to start in the music business, so I learned by doing, and that's where I did learn from my own mistakes. When shows lose money and you have to pay it out of your own pocket, you make really sure that you try not to do that again.
Terry now discusses how he began his nearly 4-decade-long journey with the festival and how he began his work in the music industry.
So how do we contribute to the community? Well, we give away 1,500 tickets to social service agencies. We let all the kind of music community in Canada, people who run small folk clubs and other events, they can come in backstage, they can meet all the artists, they can make contact. Up-and-coming artists can talk to established artists and say, what mistakes did you make coming up? What contracts did you sign that you wish you hadn't? Tell me about being on the road. So we're very friendly backstage. So I think, that inspires people. For instance, the Bear Creek Folk Festival in Grand Prairie started because someone was coming to the folk festival here. The Salmon Arm Roots and Blues Festival started because someone was coming up, and they went back with the idea to start one in their own community. Just like we started because of Winnipeg, other festivals have started because of Edmonton. We've also changed the model for festivals in that we kind of married what was best in festivals, the camaraderie, the joy, children's festivals, the things that are special about festivals, all the little things that grow up around it. Oh, I meet this person on this day, and I line up at this time, and because you line up here to get the best seats. What we did is we married that with what's best in concerts. So, because I came from the concert world, so we started to bring in bigger names. And it sounds like an oxymoron, but the more you spend, the safer you are. Because if you have a really good lineup, people buy tickets in advance, so then you're eliminating the weather as a factor. Sure, it's still a factor, people get wet and it's not as fun, but they bought the tickets, so the festival will live another day. And pretty well all the big festivals have copied that, and they've thrived because of that. People come and they see Edmonton and they go, oh, I want to bring this to our town. Well, okay, in Grand Prairie they did. And she's worked at it, and we've helped. That's another way we help our community. We own all the tents. So we lend those out into the community, and we lend them to other festivals. You might see them at Kaleido. You might see them at winter festivals. Over time, we've gotten to be one of the better off festivals, so we share that good fortune, and part of being generous. I think folk festival is known for that, and folk music is known for that. In terms of Grand Prairie, it's very hard to start a festival, so we had some years where we were able to give them some of our surplus and take them out of and give them some money. Eventually, they have to be able to stand on their own feet. And just in the last year or two, she's managed to get some bigger names, and like Sarah McLaughlin and Jan Arden and Blue Rodeo, and now it's happening where the festival sold out last year, and now it's selling well again. So pretty soon we're gonna, we won't have to help them out anymore. But the first 10 years of a festival are very difficult. The festival's hard to start. So if you're going into any kind of event planning, you have to have a passion for it because it's hard. There's a very thin line between stress and excitement. If you really like what you're doing, it's excitement. If you don't like what you're doing, it's stress. So you have to really like presenting music. And, you know, my wife always says when I come back from doing a show to Inspire, you still like doing shows? I said, yeah, I do. I like it when they make money, you know, and not lose money. Everybody's happier. You can get a buzz about a show if it's not doing well. It's just not a good feeling. But no, I like it all coming together and people having a really good time. I brought in a Ukrainian band, Dakabraka, a few years ago, and people were so pleased coming out. They knew who I was, kind of as I was there. I usually watch the audience going out, get a reaction, and they were thanking me so much to have some culture from their homeland, because Edmonton's a big Ukrainian town, right? I don't know how I would inspire artists other than young people seeing what they're doing, or maybe a mid-level artist get some good tips. We are a kind of a meeting place. Sometimes we'll have, you know, two bands from South Africa and they're touring around the world. They don't get to see each other much, but they'll see each other in Edmonton and have a good time, and who knows. We've had collaborations come out of it. We, you know, Mary Chapin Carpenter took Rose Cousins from Newfoundland on tour with her. Brandy Carlisle has had people that she met at Edmonton that has opened shows for. So there are, you know, some opportunities for younger, you know, less popular artists to tag on with, you know, with other artists. The second thing that happens if you're bringing in big stars, like we had Sinead O'Connor, we've had Van Morrison and Joni Mitchell, we've had a lot of big stars, that really energizes your volunteer base. And they go, oh, you know, I just was sitting in the kitchen and Joni Mitchell sat down beside me. Because Joni's like that. And I saw Sinead O'Connor in 97, going into our food tent, which feeds 3,000 people at a meal. It was a cold day. It was +5. She was wearing one of our sweaters. There's a picture on the wall here. And she went back for seconds. So I took that as a good sign. She was building her fuel up. But I took it as a good sign for a festival. And the artists eat the same food here as the volunteers. We don't do that star thing. When you look at our posters, and I wish people copied us, some are now, instead of having big names and then smaller names, everybody is listed alphabetically by their first name. So for instance, in 2010, when we had Van Morrison, it was Terry Morrison and then Van Morrison, which is kind of funny. You know, we listen to thousands of artists a year before we come down and decide on who we're doing. So what I'm looking at doing is balancing now, making sure there's a good representation from men, women, acoustic, electric, who's been here before, who's never been here before, different cultures. The old cliche is you can't keep everybody happy. Well, actually, we try and keep everybody happy. And because we're doing, say, 60 artists a year, you can keep everybody happy. If you book 5 or 6 or 7 artists that, you know, a 20-year-old likes, that they're happy.
Where an aspiring musician can start for free to perform live and potentially work their way up to the School of Song stage at the Folk Festival.
I got started in the music business around 1981 when an Irish band, you generally start with what you know, and there was a band called Planet who became quite a big hit in England, not over here. And then I did my first show in the Jubilee in February of 1983 with a band called the Chieftains, who were fairly well known. I had worked in different jobs. I'd worked in a bank. My training was in economics and administration, so I would have normally ended up being an accountant, working for a bank or a financial advisor. But none of those kind of got my passion. So then I did this concert and I was driving around listening to Bruce Springsteen, and I thought, I really like doing this. I wonder how you get into the business. So that's how I started. My talent is that I can recognize talent. Hopefully I have good taste. But no, I don't have any talent in music. I like to say I play the CD and I play, you know, now it's streaming. I'm a specialist in doing folk festivals, I guess. As we all become specialists in whatever job we do for, in my case, 35, 36 years. The Edmonton Folk Festival started in 1980 And I started to really notice it about 1986. I'd heard about it on CKUA radio. And I came up as a guest in 1986, as an industry guest, because I was working for the Jack Singer Concert Hall in Calgary. And then I came back in 1988, again as a guest. And then in 1989, I was working here because the person who was doing the show at the time, Holger Peterson, who's an Order of Canada recipient, he's Canada's main knowledge keeper on the blues. And he has a blues show on CBC and CKUA. And he had his own record company, so he was retiring from that. And he phoned me and asked me if I'd like to do it. I promptly turned that down. And then about 3 months later, they were still looking for someone. I turned it down because I was living in Calgary, and it was a big move, and it was struggling, and it didn't pay much money, etc., etc. Then they came back to me, and I thought, that would be kind of fun to do. So I took the job on one condition, that I live in Calgary. That was a 5-4 vote on the board. And then 2 days later, we decided to move up to Edmonton because you couldn't really do the job living in another city. So that was kind of the history of it. And then I was here 2 years as artistic director. And then the general manager quit. And they asked me would I like to be general manager as well, because they knew my background in economics, and I promptly turned that down as well. And then they found someone, and I said, yeah, I can work with her. And then she decided to stay in Toronto. So then they came back to me again, and I took it the second time. I've always enjoyed watching people enjoy themselves, whether that's at a party. I'm a bit of a people watcher. And of course, when you bring in someone into Edmonton that's never been here, that may be a big name, Hosier, we brought in. He's now on sale today, I think, at Rogers Place.
Next, Terry shares some of his standout moments and whom he would like to inspire with the work he's done at the festival.
I talked to Leonard Cohen by mistake one day. Someone gave me his number. It was before computers. I go back a bit, and I got his phone number, and that said that's Leonard Cohen's manager's number. So I phoned, and I said, hi, I was given this number for Leonard Cohen's manager. And the voice said, this is Leonard. So we chatted for 20 minutes. That was a highlight of my life. And I have to say, everybody thinks that Leonard Cohen was a really nice guy. And in my 20 minutes, he absolutely was. In fact, I got off the phone. I said, Leonard, I've got to go. I'm kind of busy, which was not the truth. I would have talked to him all day. But he was such a gentleman that he would have talked. I had seen him in Dublin and at the National Stadium, and I got seats in the second row. And that's kind of, in a way, I said, your show, that show's kind of what got me into the music business. Because I thought, I always liked going to music. How can I get these seats? Well, become a promoter. That's how you get those seats. So, or know a promoter. So we chatted to him about that, and he said, I don't really remember that show. I said, you might remember one thing, the smell. Because smell is the sense that awakens your memory more than anything else, believe it or not. So the psychiatrists and psychologists and people, brain scientists study that. And he said, yeah. I said, you know why? It was a boxing stadium. And it had that kind of musty, dusty smell of, people in athletics. And he said, yeah, now I do remember it. Yeah. I said, they just pushed the boxing rink, to the one corner and took down the ropes, and that was your stage. And he said, yeah, it was funny. I said, well, I was sitting in the second row for that show with my girlfriend, who was a huge Leonard Cohen fan. We were about 17 at the time. And I got the tickets through my sister's friend, whose boyfriend was in a band. And that's how I got those tickets. So you had to be inside the music business to get that. I had one stand-down moment, and I'm looking at the poster behind you there. It's from 2006, and it was a really good festival. And among the highlights was Natalie Merchant. I'm not sure if you know who that is, but I got word on my phone that Natalie Merchant wants to see you. And I went, uh-oh, that usually means there's a problem, because they don't come to see me. I go to see them. Naturally, I know my way around, and they're famous, I'm not. And I thought, God, why did you want to see me? It was a really good show. There was no technical problems that I could see, and the audience were happy. They looked happy on stage. And she came over in one of the golf carts. And I said, everything good? Looked great to me. Love to have you back. And she said, I just want to tell you that that is the best sound I've ever had live. And it's the best sound. She had a new band. It was the House Carpenter's Daughter, I think was the name of the album. She was touring on that. So she had a new band, she said, and they said the same thing. Now, the sound on the stage is not the sound that the audience is hearing. They're called monitors. So when you see those wedges in the front of the stage, and when I started doing concerts, I didn't know what a monitor system was. But that's how the artists hear themselves, so they can stay in tune and stay in time and all that kind of stuff. And the person running the monitor board was a guy called Colin Lay, who unfortunately a few years later, he got Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, a terrible disease, and died from it obviously. And then his brother came over from England for the memorial service. And I had someone speaking, but I made sure that they would tell that story about Colin. And his brother came over to me afterwards and said, is that true? I said, well, I wouldn't make that up. And he said, well, he was a scientist, and that's what he studied at school. And we always wondered why he left that and got into sound systems and rock and roll and shows and all that. He says, I know who Natalie Merchant is. I can go back and tell everybody. So I found that very moving. You know, I'd like to inspire my children, my grandchildren. I'd like to inspire whoever replaces me at the Folk Festival, which probably won't be too much down the road. I'd make sure we get the right person that has that inspiration and then inspire them to do the best they can. And I've always been allowed to do the best I can do here. And I maybe could have worked on bigger things in a way, but I couldn't have worked on better things.
As we heard from Terry in this episode, the tradition of music and celebration in Edmonton stretches back long before Edmonton was incorporated in 1904 and remains a vital part of the community to this day. The festival has evolved over the years, but its focus on bringing the best to each of its stages has remained unwavering. Terry's monumental work with the Edmonton Folk Music Festival seems to have been drawn from a myriad of personal experiences, each feeding back into the continuation and growth of the festival to try to create the best possible experience for everyone who comes. Please join us in the next episode where we learn the origins of the School of Song stage that showcases new talent at the Folk Festival. We also speak with different members of the music community who want to help new artists succeed and find out where an aspiring musician can start for free to perform live and potentially work their way up to the School of Song stage at the Folk Festival.